Welcome to the Empathy Avengers podcast, where we put empathy into action.
Hey everyone, we're so excited to be here today. This is going to be our very first episode of the Empathy Avengers podcast. We are here promoting empathy in the world and helping everybody build a community and be nice and kind and generous to one another and just bring positivity into the world. So we are glad you're here. Excited to introduce ourselves and our guest today. And my name is Pamela Torrance, and I'm a feminist filmmaker, political activist, and champion for democracy. I'm really excited to be here today and welcome my co host, Mindy Conway.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mindy Conway. I survived two cults, Jehovah's Witnesses and QAnon. And since leaving those, I've become extremely politically active, a community organizer, and also a champion for democracy.
Awesome. Thank you. And our special guest today is another of our Empathy Avengers, Alexa Casey. Welcome, Alexa.
Great to be here, you guys. I'm really excited about your new podcast, and I think it's going to be super wonderful and awesome. So, I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been so for 30 plus years. I am also a political activist and community organizer and champion for democracy. So, I'm happy to be here with you guys, and I'm excited about this topic too.
Yes. So, why are we here talking about empathy today? So, let's talk about our origin story of how the Empathy Avengers got together. And I'm going to turn it to Mindy because she's really our go to leader in this crazy adventure we're doing.
Well, we probably about 6 months ago, Alexa brought it up that as a community, we needed another way to stay in touch, not just one point of contact for all of us. So, offline from our group with Jim Stewartson, we created a separate community where we chat every day about the important things going on in our country. And one of the first things that has come out of that is the lack of empathy that we've seen, um, over, especially over the past 8 to 10 years, but definitely it's rocketed over the past 5 years and the past 5 months since we have somebody else in the White House.
Yep. So, yes, and I joined the community just about 4 or 5 months ago now, since
Mm.
after the inauguration, and I was feeling alone and like trying to find people that cared the way I do about what's going on in the world. And I found Mindy and Alexa and this amazing group. And since then, we formed the Empathy Avengers, which we'll tell you a little bit more about. But Alexa, it was your idea to get going and get organized offline. So tell us a little bit about that and why.
Well, I think people connecting with people that have similar interests or the things they care about is super important, and it's necessary. So I was just really knowing that we needed to figure out a way to kind of connect, not just through one source, right? So, and then what comes of it is, I think, really marvelous in the sense that you have a lot of people coming with a lot of ideas, kind of takes you in a lot of different directions, which I'm sure kind of led you guys to Empathy Avengers, right? I mean, I bet you when you started this out, you would not have thought it would ended up with Empathy Avengers, right? So, but it's a very appropriate place to end up, correct? So anyway, it's really about how people that care about things work together and actually take actions for the betterment of all of us and for the rest of society. So that's a little bit of my thoughts on it. We have a lot more power when we work together, so that's very key. So I mean, I think that even just doing what you guys are doing and in the group that we're doing, it's a lot more kind of exciting and powerful to do it as a group. So, and then pulling more people in to that.
Pulling more people in. That's why you are listening to this right now, because we need your help. Empathy Avengers. Yes, this group has evolved from just a bunch of people who are like freaked out and trying to commiserate with each other and vent and be like-minded individuals that are talking about the same stuff, to us recognizing that a lot of the fundamental problem was that they are weaponizing empathy and making it a bad thing. Even Elon Musk recently said empathy is suicide. Like, WTF? That is not true. Empathy is magic. Empathy is love. Empathy is community and feeling and being with your fellow human beings, and it's so important. It's really critical and crucial for a robust society. So
Mhm.
that's where we were like, gosh, what can we do to just try to push the positive messages and promote empathy and get people to like care about each other again in this world. And so we sort of just stumbled upon the idea that empathy was something that we wanted to champion. And then I don't even know whose idea it was, Empathy Avengers, and we thought, oh, that's great because we're like heroes, right? We're going to be out there promoting the right messages, and we want you to come along with us. And so, anyway, yes, this group has evolved from a bunch of people freaking out who found each other and commiserated with each other to now, like, what are we going to do to take positive action in this world and make a better place, make it a better place? So we've now evolved, and we're birthing Empathy Avengers officially on Empathy Day. World Empathy Day is June 12th, which started in the UK, so we're just kind of piggybacking on that. But here we are, and now we're officially launched with our first podcast episode. This
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's good to be here with you guys.
Thank you. So, Alexa, I mean, I know you haven't been able to join us every single day because you have an amazing practice, and
Mhm.
you're a psychologist. So, tell us about in your perspective, in your practice, in your daily life, why you see empathy as something that's important to cultivate and promote.
Mm. Well, thanks for asking that question. I think it's kind of the question that really defines a lot of the work that I do, empathy, right? Just in the sense of really being able to understand. I think from my standpoint as a psychologist, I have to understand, in a sense, what my client is feeling and going through. And through that understanding, I'm much more able to figure out ways of helping, ways of connecting, ways of supporting. So that empathy is an important kind of, in some ways, beginning spot to relate and connect, and then from there being able to help and sort of provide support for. So empathy is it. I mean, there's lots of other aspects to it. I mean, I don't want to simplify it by just saying it. This is it. It's a, I would say, a really important starting point, because it really allows us to not just have our own perspective, but we kind of are able to take the other person's perspective and understand where they're coming from. So I think it's really good that you guys are focused in on this, and it's great that I love the idea of the Avengers, and our cute little Avengers that are promoting empathy, and how having that with one another it is makes it difficult to do things that are the wrong way. So that I don't know if you guys are familiar with the idea of dark empathy. Are you familiar with that term that they use, of dark empathy?
Oh,
So that's, and if we're thinking about Avengers, we have sort of the light and the dark. So we are the I guess the light empathy, right? The way of understanding another person, the way of taking their perspective, the way of doing it because it's important to sort of do that, versus doing it in order to get some end for yourself, right? So the dark empathy relates to using that against another person in some ways. But this is it allows us to stand up for things like democracy. Empathy allows us to not only stand up for it, but act in a way that promotes not just one's self-interest, but others' interests. So anyway, that's a great. I'll kind of stop with that, but um,
So
did you
dark empathy would be considered like manipulation?
more or less? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of manipulation perspective, Mindy, what are some of your
Well,
experiences?
yeah, I mean, everything through my eyes is colored with my experiences with cults. And what I just found so frightening, both with Jehovah's Witnesses and then later on with QAnon, is that even though they profess to have Christian values and profess to preach from the Bible, they don't care. They don't care about people. I found that out the hard way. I had lung surgery in late 2019. And then when COVID came along, the people who screamed the loudest about wanting to sing without masks were the people I went to church with. Um, and that lack of empathy, not just for me, but also for the elderly folks that were coming to church every Sunday, was really, really alarming, and made me realize this is not God's love. So, but Alexa, I did want to ask, for me as someone who is not a professional in the psychiatry field, what can we do just as normal people to connect with others on that
Mhm.
basic timeline of empathy?
Yeah. Well, I think I think in general, just recognizing just the diversity. I think real it's to me it's super important to recognize how different we all are, right? Whether that's obvious things like religion and ethnicity and race, likes, dislikes, but on a real kind of awareness of how different we all are. And in being willing to understand each other from all of our vast different experiences, how much richer we are because of that, right? Because if we were all the same, like the whole idea of being the same and not different is super, that just creeps me out a little bit, right? Just being all the same way, thinking the same way. And that's really what's happening, that the people that are sort of thinking that empathy is evil, they want everything to be the same, right? They want everything to sort of have a kind of cookie cutter view on act this way, think this way, do these things, and their empathy, they're sort of, they don't need empathy for that, right? They just, the cookie cutter, they just do that. They don't need to think about differences. They don't need to think about kind of how rich it is. So I think empathy is is essential. And I think actually getting rid of empathy, if you think it from the opposition side, that helps them kind of have their homogenized view, right? That helps them reinforce that, you have to be the same as us. And if you're not the same as us, then, we don't want you, we don't need you. So yeah, I think it's essential for that side not to have empathy, because once you have empathy, you see how vast and amazing everyone is in their own different ways, right? I mean, I think that's a big part of it. So without it, you allow someone who's an immigrant to be taken by ICE. You allow people to be jailed without due process, right? I mean, so there's a lot of things that people are allowing because they don't have empathy for this other, right? So anyway, so I could go on, but that's a big part of why empathy is so important.
Yeah, it's like it's sort of the dehumanization of certain classes of people, right?
Right,
Um,
right,
I've been a feminist activist since, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, or even right before, and like so I've seen the dehumanization of just women in that in
right.
that in that front. But
Hmm.
that's still ongoing, but we're not stopping that fight. But now it's like everybody who's not a white rich male. It's like, I mean, that's extreme. That's an extreme statement, but it's kind of true. I mean, it's kind of that's the way, that's the feeling that they are trying to put on everybody. That if
Hmm.
you're not rich, or whatever, white mainly, and a national American, uh, that you're othered, right? And so I
Well, we're all others, right? That's the thing. There's more of us that are othered then fit into that category, and they know that, right? They know that if we all said, "Hey, I relate to you, I relate to you, I relate," to be huge kind of opposition, right? They don't want a huge opposition. They want us to be all kind of in our own little corners and thinking that this group is that. So it's very much in some ways a very good strategy for them to sort of break us up, because if we actually had empathy, that's why I think empathy is so important, right? If we had empathy for one another, these things would never happen. They wouldn't, like in some of these places you're seeing them stand up for the woman at the diner that got taken in, like bring Carol home. There was one area that so these places they're saying, listen, you can't treat our people that way. And in those places, they've been much more successful at bringing those people back, right? They've been actually having that empathy and concern. They've actually shown that it's actually worked somehow. So, but anyway, so yeah, empathy allows us to see this, that we are the same in a sense, but we're different, and that's okay.
And I've often I think about how boring it would be if we were all
Very
the same.
snooze alert, right? I mean, very
Yeah.
boring. Yeah, very boring. Yeah. And but it all comes down to power, right? It comes down to power and consolidation of power. And so if all of us are empathetic towards each other, they wouldn't have power. So I mean, it is kind of key in my eyes to what it is that they're doing. But at the same time, I think that if we are able to sort of address this issue head on, like we are with Empathy Avengers, we might kind of pull back kind of the importance of caring, of reaching out, of seeing your neighbor as yourself, of seeing ourselves in others, is going to make a big difference, in my opinion. So it is the thing that is, I think ultimately, I know seems hyperbolic a little bit, but is what will save us, is to see each other in others, and that we recognize, we need to figure this out and work together, because I don't want to live with someone like Peter Thiel calling all the shots and telling us. I mean, and yeah, and Elon Musk. So, but yeah,
Yeah, for sure. I think we've been talking about this a little bit in our group, so I'll bring it up now. I mean, it seems so fundamental. It's like we got to get back to like kindergarten basics, right?
right, right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What we learned in kindergarten, right? Remember that book? What
I
everything,
got it right
everything.
here.
Oh, do you really? All right.
Yeah.
It's
Everything I
like one
learned
of
in
my favorites.
everything I learned in kindergarten. What's the exact title again?
It's everything I ever needed to know I learned in kindergarten
Okay.
by Robert Fulghum.
Okay. Yeah.
Share everything, play fair, don't hit people, put things back where you found them, clean up your own mess, don't take things that aren't yours, say you're sorry when you hurt somebody, wash your hands before you eat, flush, warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. Live a balanced life. Learn some and think some and draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work every day some. Take a
Mhm.
nap every afternoon. When you go out into the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. Be aware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the styrofoam cup. The roots go down and the plant goes up, and nobody really knows how or why, but we are all like that. Goldfish and hamsters and white mice and even the little seed in the styrofoam cup, they all die. So do we. And then remember the Dick and Jane books and the first word you learned, the biggest word of all, look.
That's nice.
The biggest word of all was look.
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 So like look around the world at you,
Around.
at
That's
yourself.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe if we all just took naps together, we would have a better world.
Yeah. Naps and yeah. No,
Naps and play
definitely.
blocks. Uh,
Hmm.
but so Mindy, please, why don't you? share with us what our first initiative is with the Empathy Avengers, our first challenge, and you all are
Mhm.
being challenged right now as you're listening to this. So tell us about it, Mindy.
Well, the first one, I'm really excited about it too. The first one is going to be our hashtag empathy is. And what we're asking everybody to do is it's super simple. Everybody has a pen and piece of paper. You write on there using the hashtag empathy is and tell us what empathy means to you. For myself, it was, we've been talking about my cult background. So for me, it was loving thy neighbor. That should still matter. But what we'd love to do is, as many people as can take part, we would love for you to upload either a video or a photo or even an audio telling us what empathy is to you. Our hope is that we can reach just as many as of our fellow Americans and fellow citizens of the world, even with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, we want it to go wide. We're going to spread it. Use the empathy is hashtag. And we want that to go viral, like the ice bucket challenge did a few years ago. And this is a lot easier. So there's no excuses to help promote empathy in the world. So get on board, send your videos to us, and we'll incorporate them in larger videos that we'll be putting out and posting on our YouTube and our website. But just put it out in the world. You don't have to incorporate us or tag us. But if you do, that'd be great. We want more messages of pro empathy, kindness, and caring, and people helping one another. And we're going to get a little bit more advanced in our challenges. So this one's easy. So make sure you do it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, Alexa, you were talking about a lack of empathy and how bad that is. So, can you tell us a little bit? I think there are actual disorders where people have a sort of a lack of empathy. Talk about that from your psychology perspective.
Yeah, I think it's again, it's like thinking about kind of a self-centeredness, right? Like everything comes from kind of a person desiring something that they think that will somehow help them, right? And also not able to see the other very well, right? They're not able to see what another person needs, what another person is, who they are, and very much a part of like we've heard our um, I refer to him as T, referred as a kind of malignant psychopath, right? So there's a couple of psychological disorders I could reference with that. We have a kind of fairly popularized. Um, I think everyone's talking about narcissism, right? I mean, I think you can't watch TikTok without hearing about narcissism from a number of different folks, but with that, there's a very kind of self-centered, self-focused lack of empathy with narcissism, right? They really do not kind of understand or recognize another person's plight and really have no interest in learning, right? So they not only can't see it, there's not something they really want to learn or change. It's very much kind of focused on the self. Psychopathic kind of behavior that they might want to try to figure it out, but only in the efforts of kind of to their own good, right? They might want to try to understand a person, but only to manipulate it and take advantage of it and to sort of conquer it, right? So yeah, so there's really the lack of empathy overall is problematic in the sense that we don't stand up for each other. I mean, I see the problem is not just like the leaders in a sense being psychopathic and narcissistic, but if we tune it out, if we decide that it's easier not to feel it and we just kind of give into that, then it's really risky for people to just say, I don't want to be, if I care for them, I might be taken advantage of. I'm going to be out and I'm going to be called out for that. I think that is a real big concern that I have, that people are just it's I don't know, that it's uncool to be empathetic, like somehow you're weak if you're empathetic. So it's sort of that's kind of the field lately, right, that you're getting from people, that empathy is sort of for suckers. And I think we really, I think we really need to say empathy is kind of for the cool people, or empathy is humane. Empathy is for the survivors. I don't know. We've got to come up with something. But I like that's all the things. If you think about Avengers, I mean, there's so many different ways that the Avengers can save empathy and why they should, right? So,
Empathy is for everybody.
right, it's for everybody, right? It's not,
It's
yeah, no, yeah.
universal.
Right. Yeah, it was for everybody, even for the narcissist, right? So we can kind of feel empathy for people in that state. We just kind of have to know that they don't necessarily, it's not reciprocal. So but we can still have that empathy, and we can still care, and we can do the right thing for each other. So empathy, it doesn't cost much to have empathy. That's the other thing, right? There's no cost, you don't lose anything by having empathy, right? And so that's what I think is important for people to realize. There's no it's only, to me, it's only a positive to sort of be empathetic towards another person, and to be willing to kind of put yourself in another person's shoes, and to be able to sort of do the right thing, right? Do the right thing for yourself and for the rest of us. So, but anyway.
It's a strength and a superpower.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, for sure. So we got to
Definitely.
bring it back in a full way, because I think when I see all the protesters that are going out there, when I see these kind of communities standing up, there are so many things that are happening that show empathy, that show love and care and concern, and those are the things that I think we have to focus on and just sort of build upon, right? Those are the things that we have to build upon.
Yeah. I think of I was trying to think the other day about the word empathy and what's the opposite of empathy. I think that technically it's probably apathy,
Mm,
but in reality, in like this world we're living in, for me, the opposite of empathy is greed. And that's where the people who have the most money, who have the most power, want more money and more power, and they're not satisfied with that. And yet they're stepping on other people in order to prop themselves up and give them more money and more power. And so that's greed. That's an active oppression of other humans so that they can be, whatever, lifted up somehow. And that's
mhm,
Looking at you, Elon Musk.
yes.
mhm,
We are definitely looking at you. And yet there's people like Bill Gates and, Warren Buffett and a lot of other rich people who are very philanthropic and generous. And so they see their success as an opening to them to be able to spread empathy and joy and charity around the world. And so we need, it's unfortunate that we have these other rich people who are the opposite of that.
Yeah, I think that it's really, it's also like empathy of taking another person's perspective, and kind of understanding and dismissing, right? So the sort of the I comes to mind is just you dismiss the kind of that, and so you kind of um, get into that whole thing too, which I think is unfortunate, because in some ways it's sort of like the bully is taken over and kind of pulling people in, just like how they do in cults, right? They pull the bullies pull everybody in, and if you decide not to join them, then they kick you out, and you don't want to be alone, right? You don't want to be kicked out. So it's sort of like, people are getting reinforced for being kind of a bully, or being kind of taking actions that are not empathetic, or not caring and loving. So, because you don't want to
Well,
be out, you don't want to be out of the crowd, which that's a phenomenon I think too, Mindy. I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like that's a big aspect of what we're dealing with now. So,
absolutely.
mhm,
One of their favorite tools to use is fear.
mhm,
It makes us more vulnerable. It makes us easier to control. Um, and the point you were making earlier about dark empathy,
mhm,
definitely the bullies or those taking advantage of others.
mhm,
They're manipulative and they're, like you mentioned earlier, narcissistic, and just evil. I
Mhm.
can't think of another word for it because it's such a
Mhm.
basic betrayal.
Mhm.
Yeah, they really have weaponized empathy in a way because, like, if you think
Mhm.
about, I mean, again, from the reproductive rights perspective, you know, they are have focused the messaging around the fetus as a potential human, thinking it's a baby already, even though it's not, but not caring about the human that's carrying that fetus and those clumps of cells. Uh,
Or once it's born, right?
and then
That's
once
the
it's
other thing.
born,
Yeah,
they don't give a shit
right,
about.
There's a reason, the reason for that is to get that visceral reaction from their
right,
faithful followers.
right.
Because you see a baby, a helpless baby in danger, of course anybody wants to help it. But again, they're using that dark empathy. Thank you for that term. They're taking it and using it for ill purposes to, push their anti-abortion or just, their own political messaging.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I've seen, I think over the last however many years, 10 years it seems, the Overton window has shifted. Now that is a weird technical term, but what that means is, like, what you think what you used to think 10 years ago was abnormal, and maybe you would speak up when you saw somebody, treating another person
Oh, right,
awfully,
right.
horribly. But now it's just sort of natural that everybody treats everybody else like shit. So you're just gonna walk by. Like the Overton
Mhm.
window of what is acceptable to you has shifted in almost everybody because they've seen society shift in that way. And that's kind of scary, quite frankly, moving forward.
Mhm. Well, and this is why this is so important too. It reminds people that how important empathy is. It kind of gives people examples and it kind of continues, like the more we see it, the more, that maybe people will follow along, right? So that's the idea too of making it kind of more commonplace, right? So,
Yes, not just
Mhm.
follow along, but promote empathy in your own world and
Right,
it and share those stories. Share with us, share with your neighbors, share with your social media network, and tag us if you can, that'd be wonderful. But we just want more people to be cognizant and being deliberate about practicing empathy in the world and being hopeful.
right. Yeah,
And it
I
feels good.
totally agree.
Helping other people feels better than putting bad shit out there.
Hmm.
It is
Right.
contagious, quite frankly. I mean, this group, like the group of that has the Empathy Avengers Assemble kind of group that we've been planning and practicing and figuring out what we're gonna do. It's all like so hopeful for me to keep me going and like keep me positive and trying to figure out like what am I gonna do? We are all activists now. We are all fighting against fascism. And so what are you gonna do? Like participating in our empathy is challenge would be awesome.
Right.
But just
Hmm.
do kind things and you don't have to share them on social media. Just do kind things with your neighbors and your community and we really got to stick together and so this is now a very crucial time for us to build
Hmm.
this
Right.
awareness.
Hmm. Yeah. And be willing to step outside your comfort zone, right? Be willing to sort of say, "Hey, this is important, and I'm going to stand up for this because it's important." And I have other people that are doing that too. I think that's what's important too, right? Recognizing this, you won't be alone. You're not doing it alone. There are lots of people out there. So I think actually there are more of us. We just don't have the maybe we're not as savvy as promotion or the money to promote. I mean, I think there's more of us actually than everybody else. I just think that we maybe haven't been as strategic that as they have been, so as with the Bad Faith movie that we just saw recently, just the amount of organization that they've had over the decades of time. We are not doing that. So I think we took it for granted that people are always going to care now that we've turned things around, people are going to care. Of course, we're progressing, but we didn't realize that that's not necessarily the case. So,
Especially important for white women like us to lead
hmm,
the way.
hmm, hmm.
Absolutely, bringing everybody with us. Wow, this has been so inspiring. See, Empathy is contagious. It makes me feel better today. I hope you felt better listening to this. And hopefully, so like and subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel, and check us out on our website and all of our social media. We're at Empathy Avengers for all the socials. And please share our posts and spread your own posts. And with empathy is hashtag for this first one. And follow us because we're going to keep going. We're going to keep promoting empathy and bringing light into this world.
Yeah, be sure to subscribe everywhere. We've got empathyavengers.com, and we will see you all next week. Stay safe and stay empathetic.
The Empathy Avengers, where we put empathy into action.